Today I effed up by pretending to be mute on an airplane. This happened a while ago, but I still cringe when I think about it. I hopped on a short flight from Dallas to San Antonio to visit my brother. I ended up on an aisle seat towards the very back of a packed plane. As I sat, the guy seated next to me was busy, and I decided not to bug him with the quick hello or the classic business or pleasure question that people tend to ask. About 15 minutes into the flight, I began to eat one of those very dry Biscoff crackers. Without water on hand, I realized I overcommitted my salivary gland for some real work. Of course, at this exact moment, my seatmate begins his opening introduction. I nod to him and smile, but I was not about to open my mouth to pepper him with Biscoff cracker dust. Unaware of my dilemma, he asks me a question. I motion to my throat with my hand to suggest I was finishing a bite. His eyes go large, and he quickly apologizes and turns red in the face with embarrassment. I was surprised by his reaction and thought his response was a little over the top. A few seconds later, I realized that he thought I was motioning that I could not speak. No problem, I would clarify everything as soon as I could swallow my cracker. Unfortunately, this cracker must have been made from some properties that send all moisture to another dimension. As I waited, the stewardess came to save the day with a drink cart. She asked me what I wanted to drink. I just pointed at a Sprite can. As I did this, my seatmate clarified my choice by verbally telling the stewardess my selection. I could tell that he felt a sense of accomplishment, that he was able to help me communicate given my perceived disability. Maybe it made him feel better after having asked me a question that I was unable to answer. As the flight continued, I realized that I accidentally committed myself to becoming mute. I was at the point of no return, so I figured I would just go with it. I didn't want to make him feel stupid. He began to tell me a couple things about his family. He mentioned a relative with a similar impairment following a stroke. He also showed me a picture of his dog on his phone. He knew I could not respond, so he never asked me any questions. I just nodded and smiled at anything he said to be polite, not uttering a sound. Eventually, our plane lands. By this time, I forgot about my act. I sat patiently as people began to deplane. Being at the very back of the plane, I knew I had to wait, so I remained seated. My phone vibrates. I see that it is my brother calling me. I accept the call and enthusiastically say, "What's up? I just landed. Give me about 10 minutes and I will meet you out front." My memory sends me a notice a little too late to remind me that I am supposed to be playing the role of mute person on this plane. I slowly look over to my seatmate to see if he really even noticed. His head was directly aimed at me. He had the most disgusted look on his face, like I punched a baby bunny. I began to turn red. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't think of anything to say to make the moment less awkward. A part of my brain that does not get outside much convinced me to get out of the plane quickly. I turned that thought into action, and I quickly got out of my chair and grabbed my backpack. I looked back at the guy, and I can confirm that he was more committed to maintaining his disgusted expression than I was at being mute. I quickly looked at the person in front of me, standing in the aisle. I could go nowhere. I remained standing for about another eternity until the line started to ease up. I finally made my escape, but this moment still haunts me. TLDR, after a miscommunication, I pretended to be mute on a plane so I would not embarrass my seatmate. My brother broke my cover when I took his phone call upon landing. My seatmate communicated with his face how disgusted he was with my act.